All right. So again, just want to take a little bit of time this evening to really talk through what exactly 988 is going to look like here at Samaritans, give you all kind of an understanding of what the ESPs might do, talk about who we're going to be offering the warm transfer to, as well as give y'all a chance to dive into the Elevate tutorials, kind of get a feel for what that's going to look like. And then any questions that you all might have, we can also ask them. So just to kind of get us started, I know all of y'all have watched the DPH training, but just to kind of really reiterate the role of 988. So NSPL is what's going to be turning into 988. That kind of current 10-digit phone number is not going away. So people can still call that number. They're going to be transferred to the new 988, or people will be able to call 988 and be transferred to the same place. The big thing that's going to be important to remember, and what you all might have to help the volunteers remember, is that at least for now, the only changes that are happening are going to be on that 988 line. The way that we do things on the Samaritans helpline is not changing. So regardless of someone's risk level, we're not going to be offering to transfer someone to the emergency service program if they call the helpline. It's only happening for people who call 988/NSPL. The way that people are going to be able to tell that difference, and for those of you who've been on the phone recently, you maybe have experienced this, is that there's an automated prompt when a call comes in from NSPL that asks someone to press 1 to accept the call. As of right now, that's in the best way that we can kind of figure out with Elevate to identify that call is coming from NSPL. We're hoping that eventually there'll be something, either we can color coordinate it or have like something like titles it as like incoming line 988. But for now, making sure that everyone knows they're gonna be able to tell that the call is from 988 if they have to press 1 via the automation to accept the call. Thinking about who we're going to be offering the warm transfer to, the first thing is that we have to make sure that that caller is in Massachusetts. So if the volunteers may be texting you saying, I've got a moderate risk caller and they're calling on 988, is this the right person to send or to offer the ESP to? You can say yes, but first we have to ask if they're in Massachusetts, because we only have access to Massachusetts-based emergency service programs. And the big thing to be mindful of is the fact that this number is going to be routed by area code. So like for someone who isn't from Massachusetts but doesn't live here anymore, and if they call 988 from a Massachusetts-based phone number, it'll still come to us even though they're not here in the state. So making sure that volunteers really remember that the first step of knowing whether or not we can do the transfer is by asking if someone who is calling 988 is in Massachusetts. From there, if they say, yes, I'm in Massachusetts, that's who we're going to offer the ESP to. We are going to do this for people who come in or who call in and are assessed to be at moderate risk, acute risk, someone who is a third-party caller, and someone who directly asks to be transferred to the ESP. The last piece, and this is really where y'all are probably going to get a lot of questions, is around whether or not we offer it to someone who's at imminent risk. So big thing to highlight is that volunteers do not need your approval to offer an emergency service program to someone, but there's going to be probably some questions when it comes to an IR situation. So it wouldn't be a bad idea for you all to offer some guidance around offering the ESP when someone is calling at imminent risk. With that imminent risk, if they do not de-escalate at any point, so let's say either A, they are an attempt in progress, protocol stays the same. We are not going to be offering the emergency service program to someone who calls in and is an attempt in progress when they're on 988, or if someone calls into 988 and they don't accept one of our offers of help or safety planning, and we have to get to that point of breaking confidentiality, that's going to stay the same as well. We are not going to be offering the ESP because the reality is, even if we did transfer someone to the emergency service program, if they're at that imminent risk without de-escalation, the ESP is going to do the exact same thing that we do by involving emergency services and most likely sending that person to the hospital. So I'm going to stop there and see if anyone has any questions so far. I know I can talk fast and I know it might feel like a lot to absorb. Any questions? Hannah.
I just want to reiterate what the last point you said to make sure I heard it correctly, which is that we are not offering ESPs to someone who is at imminent risk but has not accepted third party, not accepted emergency services, and has refused to safety plan.
Correct.
So if we're breaking confidentiality, we're assuming that the ESP would break confidentiality, so we would just do it on our own.
Correct.
Okay.
Some of the questions that I have seen in office hours are around the way that the DPH training talks about handling those kind of imminent risk calls. And they say, at that point, 911, follow your center specific protocol and like involve 911. I've had a handful of volunteers come to me in somewhat of a panic asking if now they're going to be expected to call 911. No, but at no point should the volunteer be involving 911. We are going to keep our same home leader to on-call protocol that we have always had when it comes to breaking confidentiality. Really good.
Thank you.
Of course. I'm like, that's the one thing that I don't feel like we could be said enough. Volunteers not calling 911 at any point. An IR policy when people are staying at IR is not going to change. For an imminent risk caller who does accept one of our offers of help or safety planning, that's when you can also encourage them to offer the warm transfer with a slight asterisk and kind of to your discretion. If someone has accepted emergency services, which I think we all know does not happen very often, but if someone does accept emergency services, it might not feel appropriate to offer the emergency service program because they already have emergency services in some capacity coming to them. But that might be a time in which you can encourage the volunteer to give the Massachusetts Emergency Service Program phone number so that the caller has it for future reference, maybe after emergency services has been with them, they have that resource. But if someone accepts a third party call or if someone engages in safety planning, that's when it's appropriate to offer the warm transfer. The other piece of that is that the ESP is not going to be a form of safety planning. So it'll still be that they have to have a separate safety plan in place. Just kind of like we do for the callback offer, they have to have that safety plan set and settled and agreed upon as a way to stay safe in order for it to be kind of considered quote unquote de-escalated. So we're not going to be would you be willing to stay safe? Caller says yes, great, how about you talk to these other people? That's not a safety plan. We would still, maybe they want to go for a walk, they do that, and then we can also offer the ESP. So again, pause for questions. And while I pause for questions, I'm going to cross off what I've already talked about from my list. Everything in terms of the imminent risk feel like it makes as much sense as it can possibly make right now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. It's so weird to not see you all maybe someone could verbal nod at me. That'd be great. Just kidding. Cool. So again, we're probably going to learn a lot as we start really working with the ESPs when it comes to imminent risk. So by the time that y'all have the August home leader meeting, Mia, I think that's when the next one is. Yeah, thumbs up. By the August home leader meeting, if there's any updates, we'll definitely give them to you then, if not before. So when it comes to the warm transfer, I put together a tutorial in Elevate, so I think it might be helpful for all of us to watch that together. It might feel a little bit, I don't know, not silly, but again, just because I would anticipate the majority of questions that you're going to get from volunteers as this starts rolling out is, okay, I've got the caller, they want the ESP, now what do I do? So we're going to watch this Elevate tutorial together and then see if anyone has any questions. So let's see. Let me get it all set up. What I'm going to ask is if y'all can start throwing up virtual thumbs once the video starts, to let me know that you can hear it. So once you hear sound, just throw me a virtual thumbs up. And can everyone see the right screen? Great. Thanks, Hannah.
Now we're going to talk about how to initiate the warm transfer to the emergency service program using Elevate. The first thing you're going to do is answer the call per usual by clicking the green answer button. Once the call is connected, you're going to see a host of icons pop up. And when it's time to involve the emergency service program, you're going to click the icon that looks like a person with a plus sign to add a call. This is going to initiate a conference call between you and the caller and a third line. You're going to use this third line to call out to the emergency service program. And you can do that one of two ways. The first would be to use the keypad in the Elevate app to dial 1-877-382-1609, and then click the green call button in order to place out that call.
The second option would be to call out from a contact. And there's two ways in which you can do this. The first is that you can save it to your own personal contact list, or if you go to all contacts on your Elevate app, the very first contact that you should see is the Massachusetts Emergency Service Program. At that point, regardless of where you find the contact, you're going to hover over the contact name and click the phone icon to initiate that outbound call.
At this point, while you're working on getting connected to the emergency service program line, the caller is going to be put on hold briefly. Once the call is put through to the ESP toll-free number, you're going to click the keypad icon, and this is going to drop down a new keypad that you're going to be using to answer the automated prompt.
Okay, I want to take a quick pause here because this is incredibly important. What I learned last week when I was playing with this is that if someone uses this main keypad in the Elevate app to try and answer these automated prompts, the one is not going to be registered. And then once we enter in the zip code, it might actually accidentally place a call to an extension that like matches the zip code, in which case we might be like phoning in another volunteer into the line. So if someone's like, if the keypad's not registering, my automated prompt responses, make sure they're using this keypad that has the like icon drop down, not the main keypad. So I just want to like super highlight that because I imagine some people are going to struggle with that from time to time.
The first prompt you're going to hear is going to be asking you to press 1 for English. And then that's going to send you to the second prompt asking you to put the 5-digit zip code of where the caller is located at that time. Something to take note of is that the one that you press to go through to the English line is not going to go away before you enter in the zip code. So just take that into consideration that the zip code is going to start after the 1. Once you've entered in the 5-digit zip code, the next thing you're going to do is re-merge the calls by clicking this merge call button. This is going to bring you and the caller and the line that the ESP toll-free number is dialed on all together for a conference call. You and the caller will sit together while the ESP toll-free number rings, waiting for the ESP operator to pick up the phone. Once the ESP operator is on the line and the operator and the caller are ready for you to leave the conversation, you're going to split the calls 3 ways so that the caller and the ESP operator are put back on hold. At this point, while the calls are split, you're going to be able to transfer the caller and the emergency service program operator to each other, and you'll be able to leave the call. So as the calls are split, you're going to hit this transfer button, which is the icon that looks like a phone, arrow, phone. And that's going to start the first step of transferring. You're then going to need to complete the transfer by clicking the green button that looks just like the other one, phone, arrow, phone. Once you hit that green button, the caller and the emergency service program operator are going to be connected with each other, and you will be disconnected so that you are free to answer the next call.
Okay. So that is kind of what the transfer is going to look like. I do have a step-by-step kind of cheat sheet or like instructional page, and I will make sure that that is sent out to all of you when I send out the recording to everyone. Again, that's what I imagine most of the questions are going to be around are, how do I do this? Or people just like asking for verification that offering the ESP is the right thing to do for this caller. Let's see. Again, want to take a quick pause and see if any questions have come up. I feel like I'm moving fast through some of this.
So is there going to be a link to that recording, or are we just going to get the written cheat sheet?
We do have it in YouTube video form. It's also on the volunteer website. So that's a great thing for you all to know. Actually, thank you, Jeff. Volunteers panic, you can remind them that they can go to the volunteer website. It's on the very front page, all of the 988 support documents. But yes, I will make sure to send you all the link to that YouTube video of the tutorial so you have quick access to it. Woo, great. Jeff, thumbs up, Hannah, hand up.
To confirm, the zip code we're entering is the one we are getting from the caller, not necessarily the one that the phone that iCarol says is where the phone is from.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. We, and part of that process that the volunteers know to ask for with like the cheat sheets and the tutorials in Learn Upon is, the first step is asking whether someone's in Massachusetts. Second step is asking them if they're interested in the ESP. Third step is getting the 5-digit zip code of where they're located at that time. The other piece of that is if the caller's like, I have no idea what my zip code is because I don't know how many people actually know their zip codes, particularly if they're like traveling or if they're not at home. The volunteers are allowed to use Google to look up the zip code if the caller knows like the name of the town or city where they are.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Let's see. Other questions so far? This is either overwhelming or I'm doing my job incredibly well. So don't know which one it is. So let's see. Again, main questions that you might get, or volunteers might reach out to you and say, I think I should offer the ESP, but I'm not quite sure. Your go-to question should be, first off, is this call coming in on 988? If they're like, I have no idea, ask if they had to press 1 to accept the call. 2, you're going to prompt them to make sure they're asking if the person is in Massachusetts first, if like they kind of fit the criteria. So checking risk level and all of that in Massachusetts, and then getting the zip code from there. Like that was a little bit jumbled. I apologize. Let's see. One of the other things that you might encounter are people saying that they're not getting any calls on 988 yet. We aren't anticipating, and I'm like, everyone take a pause and knock on a piece of wood right now. We're not anticipating too much of an increase of service level right now. Currently, only about 10% of all of our calls come in on NSPL. And so if we expect that number to stay about the same for 988, it shouldn't happen that often during the day that a call comes in through that line. I think right now our average numbers are like between 30 and 35 calls a day are on NSPL, and like maybe a portion of that, like half, might be people who would be eligible for the ESP offer. So I don't think it's going to happen often, but if volunteers are asking why it's not happening, again, just remind them that not all of our volume comes from NSPL, and that's okay. The other piece of that, and something that we've been struggling with, is having everyone complete the training for DPH. Right now, we're hovering at about a 64% completion rate for all of our volunteers of that Department of Public Health training. And that is required for volunteers to be able to have NSPL calls routed to them. The other piece of that is, and I know the Learn Upon training got out late because we were figuring out the phone system stuff. But they have to have both of those trainings complete. So as of right now, what our option is to not give everyone access to the NSPL queue. And once people complete both of those trainings, they're going to then get access to that queue. So yeah, I guess that's where it is right now. It's going to be clunky. It's going to be really hard. And so with that, our big ask right now is really like over the next week, anytime a volunteer checks in with you, if you have a chance to have a brief exchange with them, just making sure that they've done both of those trainings. Because without it, they're not gonna be able to answer those calls. The other option would have been to turn off iCarol and not let them shift at all, which would have been a nightmare for everyone involved. So the solution would be, again, only giving someone access once both trainings have been completed. With that, over the next week, probably in the next 2 weeks, I would say, we're going to be emailing everyone the day before their shift when they are eligible to receive the 988 calls, to let them know, again, 988 is live, reminder, this is kind of what that's going to look like. And during your shifts, this is going to be your home leader. This is your on-call staff member. Please reach out with any questions you may have, just so we're really reiterating to everyone that they are not doing this alone, and that while they're doing it remotely, they have all of this support behind them. So you'll probably see an onslaught of emails from us over the next week or two, just reiterating to those 988 eligible volunteers. Hi, Ruth.
Hi, everyone. Sorry that I'm late. Traffic and then 15 minutes trying to figure out why I didn't have internet.
Oh, no.
But now I do.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody, for taking the time out of your evening to be here. Really appreciate it.
Let's see. So again, just to reiterate that piece, it is going to be really important that we continue to not push people, but for lack of better words, push people. Ruth is agreeing. Push people to make sure that they're getting those trainings done. This is a Band-Aid solution to not have everyone have access to the 988 queue. And I think we can probably only justify it for about a week. So we're going to be doing a lot of pushing on our end. We're going to be cold calling people. We're going to be reaching out to volunteers. And it'll be so helpful if on your end, you can also just keep asking people, have you done the training yet? If not, please make sure it's done by your next shift. Let's see. That's what I'm into. Hannah.
In anticipating folks saying, I'm so sorry I didn't complete the training, and then asking where, how to find it /login, are we directing them to, that's what I thought. Okay.
Send them right to me. I
All
would be
right.
more than happy. to get
Perfect.
settled.
Thank you.
And with that, the big thing is I am your on-call staff member next week. So any 988 questions, you'll be coming to me if you call the on-call number. So 988 has been my whole world for a decent chunk of the last 2 months. So anything that happens, I'll be your first line of defense anyway. Jeremiah will be on call Saturday and Sunday. And one thing that we're going to be doing through the end of August is having a backup on-call system, because we don't know if there's going to be an increase of volume, or let's say we're each juggling different tech questions and then someone else needs tech help, just so we can make sure there's always someone available. So what I will say to that is, if you're on an IR and you reach out to the on-call staff member and we're dealing with something else and we triage you to backup, please don't take it personally. It does not mean that we don't want to help you. It just means that there might be a bit more than what we can handle as one on-call staff member. So we're going to have kind of 2 people on call through the end of August. And one thing that we can do, and Ruth, we can talk about this, but if it's helpful for you to know who that backup person is, we can let you know. But really, the on-call staff member is going to be the main person handing it off and kind of doing like a again, lack of better words, triage from one on-call to another if need be. So keep reaching out to that initial on-call person. If we need to bop you over to the next, we might just hand you off. Again, it's nothing personal. Doesn't mean that we don't care about each and every one of you.
Does everybody have all the staff's phone numbers?
I think it's in the Homeleader manual, as long as that's up to date. That's where I
Yep.
always get it from.
Yep, nothing's changed over the last, yeah, so, okay, thank you.
Let's see. Again, we kind of moved through a lot of this pretty quickly. Like I said, we're probably going to be learning a lot over the next couple of weeks, so we should have some good updates to give you all in the August home leader meeting. But big thing to remind volunteers, I guess a lot of it is just like anxiety control, I think, with volunteers, and that's what I've seen a lot in the office hours. People are very nervous about this, and just reiterating, the way that they know how to befriend is not changing. We are not changing the way that we risk assess. It's just adding this additional anatomy step for eligible callers on that one specific line. And that's a lot to wrap their head around. And there's a good chance that a lot of them are not going to experience this for the first week or the second week, but just reminding them the big things that we do aren't changing, and that when in doubt, rely on the befriending, and they can reach out to you all if they have questions on what's the appropriate next step to take. Anusha.
I'm just curious, since we now have this extra support through ESP for 988 callers, is there any reason why we are not using it for the people who are calling us directly instead of through 988?
Yeah, so there's kind of two things that I tend to think about when kind of explaining it to myself. The first one being if we do it for all of our calls, we're going to be doing it a lot more often, and that's just a higher volume of like steps that we might all have to take. So for me, a slow burn allows us to give everyone time to get comfortable with this, to get a little bit familiar with the reality that probably eventually we will be moving this over to our main helpline. So that's kind of one thing, is a slow burn just gives us all a little bit more time to get comfortable with it before the floodgates open.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Slow burn, yeah. The main thing and the big point for me is making sure that people who really rely on our helpline as a source of constant support, nothing changes for them in that experience. There are so many people who call us because they have come to rely on what we can provide for them. And we want to make sure that we are very kind of delicate in handling what that experience continues to be for those individuals. Again, eventually we will probably roll this out to our main helpline. I don't know when that will be or what that will look like, but just making sure that for those who really use our but our internal Samaritan specific helpline, can continue to receive that source of support that they are comfortable with and are familiar with. Yeah, really good question though. And one that we kind of talked through a bit as a staff as well. And that's kind of where we've landed for now. And when that changes, you all will be the first to know. Ruth, anything that you want to add? We kind of talked about.
So I have a question as well as, so did you already go through the video?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. All right.
We're chugging along. We're doing great.
Yeah, no. No, I mean, nothing particularly, just again, to, thank you guys for not only being here tonight, but really taking this, your service sort of to the next level, right? I mean, this is, so much is changing and very, very quickly. And as Finley just said, it's kind of a slow burn, and there are going to be bumps in the road and things are not going to go perfectly. And we just have to learn from our mistakes and, but just, you know, continue to support our callers the best way that we know how. Oh, Finley, did you mention the PSG staff?
No.
Okay. So for the state contracted with professional PS staffing group, so PSG, to hire some folks on a not on a per diem, but on a temp basis for the 988 rollout. And so you will see, if when you're in iCarol, as soon as these folks are onboarded, you're gonna see, we haven't figured it out yet, but they will be identified differently than remote phone. It'll probably say PSG staff. And these are individuals, and we have 4 of them currently. We might be going down to 3, who are only allowed to answer 988 calls. So Hannah, for example, when you're monitoring the call center, or Karen, soon to be, and Karen, you and I need to touch base quick. If you are seeing that they're like not answering a lot of calls, it's because only 10% of our calls are 988 calls, and they are only allowed to answer 988 calls. They are not on Samaritan's payroll. And so we anticipate some downtime. And again, they're not Samaritan's employees, but they have gone through a very, they've gone through a training with Finley and the others, obviously, on how to befriend and how to risk assess and what this warm transfer policy is. So you may see, you'll see some names that you're not familiar with. They have not started shifting yet. They're all still in learning shift, in their learning shifts. The expectation by the state is that they will be ready to be on the lines this coming weekend. We have been very clear with the state and with PSG that they will not be on the line until they are cleared by us. So more to come on that.
The main thing with them also is that they are trained in the same procedures and protocols as all of our volunteers. So they should still be checking in and out of their shifts with you, just like everyone else does. They should be reaching out to you all if they have something that they want to debrief. They know that y'all are there for support for them as well as contacting you all in the event of an imminent risk call. So they should be behaving with each of you the way that every other volunteer and part-time staff on the helpline interacts with you all. And if that seems to be a different experience that you all have, please let us know immediately.
Yes, please let us know.
Is that going to a specific person, Finley again, or just anybody on call?
That would be me.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Finley,
If it's
please,
shift
one less,
specific
you know.
thing, well, yeah, or if it's shift specific, if something seems to be
Yeah.
exploding on a shift, on call first. But if it's like just want to put this on your radar so you're aware of what's going on, then Ruth would be the best person. Oh. Not bad. Let's see. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I had one other thought, but it's completely slipped my mind. So, Anusha.
Yeah, I think earlier you spoke about you might talk about today how ESP support would look like. That's something I was waiting to hear about.
Yeah, sorry, I did say that, and then I totally forgot that I said that. So based on my conversations that I've had with Casey, who's our chief clinical officer, the main thing that the ESPs are going to be doing is a more in-depth risk assessment than what we do. So people who are put through to the ESP will be re-risk assessed by that emergency service program operator. And what that person is screening for is whether or not that person needs to be hospitalized in that moment. And if not, what additional resources or forms of treatment they might be eligible for. So the ESP is going to be really screening for that next layer of treatment and care than what we do. So again, kind of thinking about in the event of an imminent risk call, they would, if someone's imminent risk or attempt in progress, and they're screening for potential need for hospitalization, they're probably going to be sending emergency services the same way that we would. So that's kind of, again, that's the one thing that we really align on. For everyone else who gets sent through to the ESP, it's going to be much more proactive. What are next steps, action item conversations, not so much the befriending piece that we're providing to everyone. With that, each ESP operates slightly differently from each other. So when it comes for us on the helpline explaining the role of 988 to or the role of the emergency service program to callers, it's that high level, explanation of, we at Samaritans are always here to listen. Excuse me, we're here to listen. That's, when you call us, you're going to have a conversation with someone. But if you or someone is feeling suicidal or struggling with thoughts of suicide, and they're here in Massachusetts, we might be able to connect you to the emergency service program for additional support and resources. So that's like on the helpline, how we will be explaining it, but just so that you all know kind of background knowledge, what the ESPs might be doing is more of that proactive resource brainstorming with people.
I have a follow-up question.
Please, hopefully I can answer it.
What does the additional support or resources look like? Just for an example, if someone asks us.
So again, that's actually a really good question. That is, I would imagine, center specific. And I think there's different programs that they have access to. There's so many different things that could happen. So if people continue to have more questions, and they are eligible for the ESP transfer, then our volunteers can put them through and let the caller know that they can ask the ESP operator all of those questions themselves. If someone is not eligible for the ESP transfer offer and they have a whole bunch of questions, that's when we would direct them to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline website, where there's like a subsection of 988 where they can read all about what exactly 988 is going to do. Or we can direct them to the Massachusetts DHP website to read more about like Massachusetts-based implementation. So we are not going to be answering a ton of specific questions because each center is going to be operating. Sorry, my dog decided to throw a fit because, excuse me, they're all going to be operating a little bit differently. Sorry. My doorbell rang and my dog thought that was the most grave offense that could possibly happen. Anusha, I don't know if that feels kind of okay for an answer.
Maybe I can check the website. I was just not sure, like personally, what kind of services or additional resources they might benefit from through this service. I think that might be a question very likely to come up.
Yeah, and I think, they might talk about like options for potential like hospitalization if that's like they're more like that critical care need. It might be like a specific program that they can go towards, whether they're youth or adult. So
Anusha, are you asking about resources or services outside of the 4 core programs that they offer? So like services like within those 4 core programs?
I'm not sure what the 4 core programs are.
Okay. So the warm, Finley, correct me if I'm wrong, but the warm handoff training that was part of the Mass Achieve training that is required of everyone, reviews those 4 core programs. It's like mobile crisis, youth stabilization, adult stabilization, and like hospitalization, one of those, you know, whether it's partial or full. So
Oh,
so
I remember now. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
okay. If there are services, like additional services within each of those core programs, then that would be more of a specific question for the ESP. And at that point, I believe we would probably no longer be engaged with the caller because we will have done the transfer.
Right. So we don't have to tell them about the 4 core programs if someone asks us.
No,
Okay.
I wouldn't, just because I think the ESPs are going to be one to determine that. Again, that would be the kind of the chance where you would then like defer to the ESP to explain what options might be available to that person. I would be hesitant for us to give an example because it might set an expectation for that person
Sure.
that they're going to have that exact experience. And it's just going to be so case dependent, I think, on the ESP side.
Right. That makes sense. Thanks.
I remembered my other point though. If a volunteer calls you saying that a call drops while a transfer is trying to happen, what part of what they're going to be doing is asking the caller for a callback number so that we can contact them again in the event of a call dropping. They should be the ones to place that call, but if a volunteer reaches out to you kind of in panic, they're like, the call dropped and I don't know what to do, tell them that it's okay. Ask first if that person gave them a callback number, and if so, they can restrict their number, kind of block their outbound number, call that person back and retry the transfer. The other thing that everyone should be doing is offering to give the toll-free number to the caller so that in the event of a disconnection, they also have the ability to call themselves. But if someone calls you in a panic of, I tried to do the transfer and the call dropped, first question, excuse me, do you have a callback number? If yes, they can call back. If no, then we wait to see A, if they either call us back, or B, they should have the number to call the ESP directly. But letting the volunteer know to breathe in the event of a disconnection, it does not mean that they did something wrong. It just means that technology can be tricky. And then asking again if they have that callback number. So that might be, again, one of those questions that you get is call dropped, what do I do? Let's see. Any other questions? Everyone feeling okay right now? Anyone feeling like overwhelmed?
Hannah's good.
It's just good. So again, big thing is if you feel overwhelmed by it, if a volunteer is feeling overwhelmed by it, again, like on-call staff, always there for support. There's going to be 2 of them over the next 6 or so weeks. We are going to get through this. As Ruth said, it's probably going to be clunky. We're going to have some growing pains.
Mhm.
Keep reiterating that to the volunteer. If they're like, this feels bad, I don't know what I'm doing, I feel uncomfortable, reiterate to them that we know it's going to come with a period of adjustment. We're going to work through it. And then send any more specific questions to on. Bless you. To on call. Okay. Ruth, anything else on your end?
No, nothing. Again, thank you. A question for Karen though. Karen, are you able to stay on this call for a few minutes?
Yeah, I can.
Great. We'll stop recording, of course.
Perfect. So yeah, at this point, if there's no more questions. Again, just thank you so much for carving out about an hour of your evening. Again, we overshot just because we didn't know how many questions there would be. So thank you for being willing to sit with us for an hour and a half. And I'm glad that we got you out earlier. But any questions that keep coming up, send them our way.
Did this meeting start at 6?
6:30.
Oh, okay. I thought just heard you say an hour and a half, and I was like,
No, they were going to be willing to be with us for an hour and a half.
oh, okay.
We had
Like,
gone.
wow, I was really late. Okay.
No. But again, thank you for being here. Again, we just want to make sure that everything was really touched base on because y'all are going to be that first line of defense for our volunteers with any questions that they might have. Anything that y'all feel is you're not ready to answer or you have questions about, call us for anything. We are here to support you as much as you are there to support your volunteers, which you all know, but again, just extra right now while we all grow pain together with 98. I'm going to stop recording.